Podcast.
I said this in the previous episode, but for real this time, this is the last episode of the year, the last episode with me in the $158 podcast studio, Shure SM58, and a Focusrite Vocaster 1. I hope you're having a good holiday season. You're ready for a brand new year. It's Build a Big Podcast, a marketing podcast for podcasters. This is the podcast to help you grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make more money with your podcast, make a podcast that people care about. This episode, the audio edition of my weekly newsletter, that is called Big Podcast Insider. You can find it at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 213. Here's what we're going to talk about. Meet the new year, same as the old year. Seth Godin's book promotion strategy. What has your podcast got to lose? A real party animal. Also some classified ads, things that will help you to grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make money with your podcast, the things that this podcast is about. This episode of Build a Big Podcast brought to you by Riverside.fm, a virtual recording studio that's going to make your podcast sound great wherever you, your guest, or your co-host are in the world, meaning that you could be like me here in Nashville, Tennessee. You could have a guest in Australia, a co-host in Chunky, Mississippi. Everything is recorded locally. It's uploaded after everything is recorded, synced together with individual tracks. There is no bleed through. You're going to sound crisp and clear. Your co-host, your guest, they're going to sound crisp and clear. Recording is as simple as opening up the Chrome browser. Editing, you can do it like a Word document. Also, AI promotion. Everything you need to record and edit your podcast and sound great doing it. You can try it for free. This is the URL, riverside.fm. Go there right now. You'll get an account. They're going to give you a couple of hours to check it out. Do an interview. Do 2 interviews. Take a look at the AI tools, the recording studio, the editing options. If you like it, this is how to stick around. The code, Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. That's going to get you 15% off. The URL, riverside.fm. The discount code, Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. All right, let's get to it. Thing to thing to thing. You know how it works. At the end of everything, you're going to hear this sound. That's how you know. If you want more information, the links to everything that I'm talking about, go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com. You are getting the newsletter, right? Go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Put your email in. I'll send you one every Friday morning, New York time. You should do it right now. Go ahead. I'll wait. All right, let's go. Meet the new year, same as the old year. How will the coming year be different for your podcast than this year? That's up to you. I'm going to give you some small actions that you can put in place right now that will yield big results. Maybe not this week, maybe not next week, but when we extrapolate this stuff, we look at the 52 weeks of the upcoming year. This is going to add up. This is going to get you more listeners, more money, more attention for your podcast, better guests, better quality content. Here's the first one. Engage more with your audience. Podcasting, if you do it right, it is interactive, and building a strong connection with your listeners can dramatically improve your podcast reach and retention. Start by actively engaging with listeners via social media, email newsletters, community forums, encourage feedback, host Q&A sessions, make a Q&A episode. Respond to people who are commenting on your podcast, whether it's via YouTube, maybe you've got something on your webpage, kind of like an answer machine. People can connect, leave a voice message for you. Or maybe just a form, type something out for you, connect with those people. Don't say you're too busy to respond. Those interactions are a great way for people to talk about you to their friends. Something that a lot of cities are doing, they do it here where I am in Nashville. Police will pull you over, say you got a busted tail light. Instead of writing you a ticket, they give you a coupon. Hey, get that tail light fixed. You just had a nice interaction with the cops. Say, man, I can't believe it. A cop pulled me over. Here I am thinking I'm going to get a ticket. I'm in trouble. Gave me a coupon to get my taillight fixed. It's blowing people's minds. They did this because most people, and you can think about this in your life, anytime you have an interaction with the cops, they're pulling you over. Something bad has happened. They wanted people to have good interactions with cops. This is the way to do it. Driver leaves with a good feeling, better trust. You're going to tell people. It helped the reputation of the police here. That is what will happen to you when you interact with listeners. Hey, you'll never believe it. I wrote this guy, and he wrote me back. I can't believe it when I write somebody back and people say, oh, what? You wrote me back. Oh, I didn't expect that. Especially when I get on the phone with people. Man, I've heard your voice for so long. It's weird to actually be talking to you and hear it in this way. You don't have to have a huge podcast to make that happen. So engage more with your audience. That's the first thing you should do. Second thing, collaborate with other podcasters. Networking with other podcasters is going to open doors for new audiences and ideas. The other podcaster has different listeners, different ideas, different ways of doing things. You're going to combine their listeners with your listeners. This is how to grow an audience. Reach out for guest appearances, cross promotions, collaborative episodes. These partnerships are going to introduce you to their listeners. Your listeners will be introduced to them. Fresh content, fresh perspective to people who might not have heard you otherwise and probably wouldn't have heard you otherwise. Plus, you get an endorsement. Quick side note, if you want to connect with podcasters who are working just as hard as you are and do some stuff like this, check out Big Podcast AMP. I'll talk about it here in a minute. But the one sentence pitch, it's a personal coaching program to help you grow your podcast audience. You can find out more at bigpodcast.com/AMP. Third thing to do this upcoming year, set clear goals and to track progress. Define specific, measurable goals for your podcast this coming year, such as increasing downloads, securing sponsorships, growing your audience, or expanding your audience to new demographics. There are a bajillion analysis tools that you can use to track your progress. Let me tell you what I would do. The only thing you can really control is you showing up. Let's say that clear goal is more reviews from my podcast. Okay, cool. Ask somebody every day. Get you a Google spreadsheet, make a mark on the wall, whatever you need to do. Every day. Hey, would you mind leaving a review from my podcast? And maybe combine this with a pitch. You see somebody filling up his car at the pump. Hey man, it looks like you're really into cars. This is a nice car. Oh yeah. I love cars. I actually do a podcast on cars. Hand him a card. Take a listen. Is it weird? Yeah, it's weird. You'll get used to it. And this is how podcasts are grown. If you talk to some big podcasters, and I'm talking about big people on the independent podcast circuit, 1 or 2 man teams that have grown something to be fairly substantial. If you email these guys, you talk to them at a podcasting conference, they are doing things like this. Hey man, glad to know you like the podcast. Would you mind leaving a review? Every time I email this dude, hey man, would you mind leaving a review for the podcast? Every single email. I think he attaches it to every email that he sends automatically. And it works. Thousands of reviews. He's been doing it for, 15 years. And he's got no shame. If you ignore him, you get sick of him, tell him to fuck off. Getting edgy here at the end of the year. If you tell him off, water off a duck's back, he asks the next guy. Something to think about. For more thoughts on these, that full list, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 213. Big Podcast AMP, I just mentioned it. If you like the podcast, if you like the newsletter, you're going to love Big Podcast AMP, the audio monetization program, a personal coaching program that's going to help you do 3 things. 1, grow your podcast audience. 2, get people talking about your podcast. 3, make more money with your podcast and your podcasting skills. You don't have to be a very advanced podcaster to be more advanced than most people. A lot of people want to get into podcasting. A lot of people want to get on YouTube. You say, I hate YouTube. You probably know how to get somebody up on YouTube, though. You can sell these services to people. You can grow your own podcast using these kind of things. I can help you with both. I got all the details, bigpodcast.com/amp, bigpodcast.com/AMP. Seth Godin's book promotion strategy. Seth Godin, arguably the most successful business book author in modern times. And we've got some lifestyle guys, Tim Ferriss or whatever. That's fine. Tim Ferriss might have, 4 or 5 books now. Seth Godin has maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen. I taught a college class 25 years ago. It's hard to believe. I'm feeling old, man. It's a music class. A college here was starting a music business program. I was working in the music business at the time. This guy running the school approached me. He said, hey, man, would you mind teaching a class? We're trying to get this program established. I said, fine. And the textbook that I used was a freebie from Seth Godin called Unleashing the Idea Virus. You could also buy it, but the whole thing was about getting people talking, word of mouth promotions. So he gave it away for free as well. He does something similar but different. His latest book promotion strategy, and he's done this for a while, podcast interviews, 80 of them to be specific. That may not sound like a lot. If it doesn't, you've never done 80 interviews about the same book. It's like speed dating. Have you done that? Speed dating came to town, again, 20, 25 years ago. My friend from out of town, she's like, oh man, there's this new thing, speed dating. I saw it. I signed up for it. I was excited. It sounded neat. 30 women in 90 minutes. And each woman there, she got to meet 30 men. It was really interesting because basically what you would do is you would sit down, again, 30 women, 90 minutes. You've got 3 minutes. So sit down for 3 minutes and talk about yourself. Oh, hey, what's your name? Oh, what brought you here? I've got a hobby. I like walks on the beach and pina coladas and Lifetime movies. Ding, ding, ding. Go to the next one. Hey, what brought you here? Oh, great. You got any hobbies? Same thing. 30 times in a row. There was alcohol involved. I don't drink. And this is why I was noticing this. Because the people who were drinking, I guarantee you, were not noticing it. Things got looser as the night went on. Blah, 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 blah. People were having a good time, or maybe an awful time, and they were trying to drink to forget it. Regardless, the point here is that when you show up and you give basically the same message every single time, 80 is a lot. And if you are smart, 80 is enough. Seth Godin is not going everywhere. He is going to big podcasts. And I don't know what big means. Probably not all Joe Rogan level. In fact, I don't even think Joe Rogan is his audience. He's not going on general podcast. He is going on niche specific podcasts, productivity, marketing, business, promotion. If you can hit 80 of those, you're going to sell a lot of books. The other thing that he did, this doesn't have anything to do with podcasting, but I want you to think about it for your podcast and definitely for books. If you ever do a book, he put together packages. He sold books in bulk. And bulk is what we are talking about when I say go on a podcast or do a cross promotion with somebody, be a guest, have a guest, borrow an audience. You are borrowing people in bulk. He did the same thing with physical books, selling books in bulk. You could buy 5, 10 books, give them to your friends. Again, this is a guy who had a book called Unleashing the Idea Virus. That is the way to do it. Give somebody 5 books, if they really like it, they are going to tell their friend. I talked about the cops pulling people over. You have an experience. It's remarkable. You're going to tell your friend about it. You, as a podcaster, a listener writes you. You write back. You get on the phone with that person. They've got a good experience. Oh my gosh, I got to talk to somebody about this. My favorite podcaster called me back. Can you believe it? Because you are a celebrity to those people. You don't think you are a big deal. They do. Side note, a previous episode of this podcast and a previous edition of Big Podcast Insider, I talked about how more and more podcasters are rejecting the author interview format. That is true. The rules, if we're going to call it that, it's different for celebrities. And for a lot of people, Seth Godin is a celebrity. If you want the full strategy that he used, or if you want the story about how more and more podcasters are rejecting the author interview format, I've got them linked. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 213. What has your podcast got to lose? Editing makes a good podcast a great podcast. I've got an article. It is linked. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue 213. I love this. This is a 1,000 plus word article, which is what I had time to write this week. Given more, I'm sure I could have cut it to 400. Meaning, given more time, I'm sure I could have made it fewer words. The hardest speech I ever gave was a pecha kucha. Is that how you say that? It's a strictly time-limited talk, 5 minutes, with slides that advance automatically every 20 seconds. Compared to that, a 1-hour keynote is a breeze. I'm ready now, but the discipline of making your show as short as humanly possible while retaining what is truly important is guaranteed to shorten the time it takes to connect with your audience. With so many choices, every second counts. That sums up editing. I give the concept that I got from a stand-up comic that I know, Rick Roberts. Had a podcast for a long time called School of Laughs. It is still available. If you're interested in comedy, if you're interested in writing, getting your point across in the shortest time possible, worth looking up. And Rick said this. He said, if you've got a joke and it takes 3 minutes for you to set it up and get to the punchline, if I can do that in 90 seconds and stack another 90-second joke on top of it, people are going to think I'm twice as funny. If I can do it in a minute and have another minute joke and another minute joke, I can squeeze 3 jokes in that time you're doing 1. I thought about that with podcasting. Consider it. People are not buying by the pound here. They want an experience. They want an outcome. They want you to get to the point. So edit your podcast. More thoughts on this? The link to the article that I'm talking about, newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 213. A real party animal. Spuds McKenzie. Look him up. There's actually a female. Spuds McKenzie, the real party animal. Question for you regarding editing. Do you find yourself editing what others say in your head when you're having a conversation? Or do you find yourself editing yourself, thinking about something that you've said and wish that you could go back and edit it? We pick up a lot of skills in podcasting, and some of them do not work well in daily life. For example, meeting somebody, instantly going into host mode, and turning that meeting into an interview. It's the end of the year. Talk about getting a little edgy. Might as well tell this story now. I was at a podcasting event in Florida, Orlando, Florida. And I see a guy down there that I had met before. He had come to an event that I organized in Nashville. He says, hey, man, we're going to the club tonight. Are you interested in going? I said, the club? Okay. Sounds good. He put together a group, 3 other podcasters. So 3 people other than me, and then him, 5 people total. And the club he was talking about, a BDSM club, bondage club. I'd never been there. I'm open to new experiences. I'm like, all right, cool. So later that night, head over there with some other podcasters. These are all guys that I knew. One of them, I'd met her that day. I was like, all right, it's a new experience. We get there and they want to take you on a tour of the place, which one of the guys referred to as Satan's CrossFit. It looked like a CrossFit box, but it was red and black and chains and ropes and stuff. And this guy's taking you around. He's showing you the different setups. Well, this is where we keep the hot wax, and this is where we do knots. And I really like silk rope. It doesn't leave a mark. And here's some big 400-pound women wrestling each other. It was pretty interesting. Anything went, no judgment. And just be clear, I'm not making judgment on it either. What I found is that it was just people trying to connect with other people, not any different than you doing a podcast. But I was pretty fascinated by it because where I am, the Buckle of the Bible Belt, yeah, we got those places here, according to my buddy who took us to the Florida club. But Buckle of the Bible Belt, I would imagine they're always getting shut down. I don't know. Regardless, these dudes are out there in the open, loud and proud. And I'm all for it. Good. Do your thing. The guy says, if you've got any questions, let me know. And I had questions. I was like, okay. I said, any questions? Yeah. He said, and feel free, if somebody's not doing something, they're hanging around. Yeah, people are friendly here. They're willing to talk. Well, kind of. They were kind of willing to talk. I think I had so many questions, I scared people. I left before the other guys. And my buddy came to me the next day. He said, man, dude, they thought you were a cop. Getting the lay of the land, you know? That's one of the things we've got to watch as podcasters. You're at a social event. You go into host mode. You're interviewing people. Some people get nervous. And these guys, you know, maybe they weren't comfortable there. They're sneaking out. I don't know. It's not a thing to me. I don't make judgment. I don't know people's stories. You know, maybe their wives or husbands or boyfriends or girlfriends or lovers or whatever didn't know they were there. All right, cool. I've got a joke attached to this. It is visual. You can see it. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 213. Classified ads, things will help you to grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make money with your podcast. Book Like a Boss is automated guest booking software for podcasters. If you're tired of guests missing interviews, Book Like a Boss is what you need. It's going to handle all the little details when it comes to guest booking. It automates guest scheduling. Automatic reminders, including text messages, are sent to guests. It integrates with all email and all calendar software, and you can try it for free. If you were doing podcast booking the old way, Don't do it, man. Don't do it. Step into the present, man. Book Like a Boss. I got a link for you to try it for free. Once you set it up, it is hands off. You give it your calendar, books everything for you. No more back and forth. No weird time zone things. You're going to love it. You can try it for free. Go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 213. Be Cloud. I love cloud storage. And this is lifetime backup storage. You're going to get 10 gigabytes for free. Don't lose your hard work. Make sure that you are backing up your podcast. It is awful to lose a moment in time. I've lost interviews, had people that I thought I would get back to. We'll just catch you next time around. They died. They moved. Even if that didn't happen, you cannot recreate a moment. Back everything up. You're going to get 10 gigabytes free with no obligation to buy anything else. I've got you linked. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Hey, thanks for listening to Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. I hope you've enjoyed spending the year with me. I'm looking forward to the new year. Can't wait to help you grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make money with your podcast. If you would, do me a favor. We've been talking about word of mouth. Right now, before you forget, tell 2 friends to go to bigpodcast.com, listen to this podcast, look at the newsletter, get the other free resources that I've got to help you grow your podcast. I want to spread some good messages this coming year. It's getting ready to get crazy. We can only do what we can do. Show up, ask for reviews, put out episodes, make good content. After that, it's out of our hands. And one of these things that I can do, one of these things you can do, I mentioned it earlier, ask for people to leave you a review, ask for people to subscribe, show up, let them feel you. If they're interested, they're going to do it. If not, go to the next guy. So I'm coming to you. Let a friend know, let 2 friends know. Bigpodcast.com, that's the website. Thank you very much for sharing this time with me. I look forward to talking to you in the future, just a few days from now. And to make sure that you don't miss that, bigpodcast.com, you can also subscribe. Some of the kids are calling it follow now. Everything at bigpodcast.com. I'll see you there, and I'll see you here on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.